Hello there. I assume that if you're watching this, you're one of my students and you're doing your instrument rating. So today we're going to be talking about holds. Holds are a little bit of a different concept for a lot of people, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, they're also very difficult to understand. So I'm going to try to draw some pictures and illustrate exactly what we're talking about when it comes to holds and how we perform them. So, what is a hold? A hold is a procedure that we use in instruments in order to basically pause or pull over, if you will. So because aircraft can't, stop, unless you're a helicopter, we have to find out a way to basically pause our flight, and for whatever reason. So this could be due to weather, this could be something wrong with ATC, or perhaps somebody on approach is faster than you, and so you need to wait. So these can be published, as you might be able to see in a on an approach plate, or in some areas on a LUO IFR chart. They have published holds. Otherwise, you can have an unpublished hold, and that's anything that ATC gives you. They can give you instructions to hold over any waypoint. This can be a VOR, this could be a GPS waypoint, or a radial. So this is what holds usually look like. Their standard turns are right. So instead of having left turns be standard like they are in traffic patterns, you have to make sure that you remember that standard turns are to the right. And non-standard turns, if you happen to get them, will be mentioned in your clearance. So this is generally how they look. This is a hold. This is this here. This is the inbound leg. So I'll label it here, inbound. And this leg here is the outbound. So ideally, you want to, when you're established in the hold, you will want to be coming in towards the fix, and then you'll want to make a little bit, you want to make a 180-degree turn, and then go on your outbound, make another 180-degree turn, and back on your inbound. When you're established, that's how it'll look. In the air, because of wind, it might look a little bit differently, but essentially, this is how it will look. So again, this fix can be a VOR, it can be a radial, so 15 DME off the 230 radial of some VOR, or it could be a GPS fix, or wherever ATC wants you, really. So I'm going to talk about a little bit more about, this will be your radial, or whichever place you are holding off of. I'll just label this radial, because usually we'll be using radials. And then we have, this again is our fix, so I'll label that as well. That's whatever, it's just the generic look for a fix. And then we have our holding and non-holding sides. So this is our protected side. This is very important to understand. And this is non-protected. So when looking at this, this is our protected side. We want to make our hold on whichever specific area we are given. The reason for this is ATC is going to expect us here, but they will not expect us here. There may be traffic here, or places, terrain, something that inhibits us from being on this side. So we want to make sure that we are on the protected side when we're doing our hold. How we get in there, whatever, is up to us. ATC doesn't really care as long as we are here and not here. So how do we get into a hold? Now that's the fun part for a lot of people. Once established in the hold, a lot of people can usually make it happen, because it's just a series of turns and going straight for a while and more turns. However, getting in is the tougher part. So how we usually do this, how I will teach you in the plane, is here is your HSI. So let's say it doesn't even matter where we are. So this is where we are here. So we are heading this way. What we're going to do is we're going to use our hand, or for this illustration I'll use my arm. So what we're going to do is, depending on our clearance, we will stick our hand across like this, and then depending on which turn we get, so if it's left turns, we're going to lift on the right, and then right turns we're going to lift on the, left turns lift on the left, and right turns on the right. So if, say, we get a hold and it's right turns, we're going to increase 20 degrees on the right. So what we're going to do now, we grab the color, is from that 20 degrees, we're going to make a line here, then line here, and this is all in your head. So then you come up with these 3 sectors. This one's going to be direct. It's going to be your biggest sector. This one's going to be teardrop. This other one's going to be parallel. Now the military doesn't even use teardrop because it's such a small angle, but generally we are going to use one of these 3. Now the easiest obviously is direct, and then they get increasing in difficulty. So I will, and probably an important thing to mention is you are going to use whichever, so say you get, they have you go to a radial, and they give you a radial. Now I don't have anything on here, but what you're going to do is find out from where you are, your position, where that radial happens to be. So say if you look at your HSI and that radial is right here, you're going to want to use a parallel entry, such as or here, wherever that is the entry you're going to use. That makes it pretty simple. So we're going to quick talk about entries. There are 3, again, like I mentioned. So I'm going to quick show you how to execute them. So we'll start with direct because that one's probably the easiest. So we're going to have our hold here. So obviously this is the inbound and this is the outbound. So say we're coming from here. That's the wrong one. Wrong way, we're flying away from it. We're flying from here. We would use a direct entry. Now all we do is go direct, like they say, to the fix, and start on our outbound. Pretty simple. And you can do this from here. You gotta remember that sector was the largest. So even though it's a little bit of a sharp turn, you can still do it. And even from here, you could manage to do it. Yep, that's an aircraft. So you can do it from a lot of ways with direct. Now let's go to teardrop. I like teardrop, I think they're fun. So here's our fix. And our racetrack. So let's say we're coming from here. So we're coming basically towards the inbound. So now with parallel, what you do is you fly direct to the fix, and then you parallel the outbound leg on that radial or whichever heading you're assigned, and then you curve around, and then using at about an angle of 45 degrees more than that 180 degree turn, you're going to either intercept the radial or go direct to the fix. Intercepting the radial is a little bit easier because then you have more time for when you get to the fix, and then you can have your timer and things set up. So however you do that is up to you. It's kind of personal preference, if you will. Although going direct to the fix might be a little bit tougher, and if there's wind, that also might affect how you do it. Finally, we're going to talk quickly about, finally we have our teardrop. Sorry, I had that cut. So when you come in for a teardrop, you're going to hit the fix, and you're going to go outbound, and then you're going to turn your 180 degrees and just intercept your radial, however much it takes. And then you'll continue your inbound leg, and all will be jolly. So, on last note, I'm going to talk just a moment about timing. So, how do you know how long to hold? So, with a hold, I'm going to just draw a hold like my first one. I'm going to go with Christmas colors for this. Here's our radial, then our actual hold. So here's our outbound and then inbound. So our goal for this hold is to get the inbound leg to be 1 minute. Now, sometimes from ATC we'll get like 4 nautical mile legs, or they'll have us do something else. But in general, below 14,000 feet, we want to do 1 minute inbound legs. Now, because wind exists, it probably won't be like that the first time. So, depending on where the wind is coming from, will depend on how we adjust the timing of our outbound leg. So what we're going to do is we're going, as soon as we make our turn, if we're doing a VOR, so I'll write this down. VOR, start the timer when the flag flips. Right here, flag flip. And for a radial, you'll start the timer when your wings level. And that will start the timing. So here, we'll start your timing for the outbound leg. So now depending on how long your outbound leg takes you and then your turn doesn't really count. It's just 180 degrees, but you'll start figuring this out using the timing of the outbound leg. So you go outbound for 1 minute, then you make your turn, intercept your radial or wherever, and then your inbound will determine what you need to do. You do your outbound. So say your inbound leg happens to be 1 minute and 10 seconds. So obviously that's more than a minute. That's not what we want, which means that we have wind. So if it's taking us a minute, if it's taking us longer, the wind's probably coming from this way or something. So I'll label this wind. So it's taking us longer to make that inbound leg. So in order to compensate for that, making this inbound leg a minute, we need to make sure that this one gets shorter. So we're going to shorten this up to 50 seconds. And in hopes that as long as the wind doesn't change, we will fly out for 50 seconds, make our turn, and then our inbound becomes 1 minute because of how the wind is pushing us. So that is pretty much all I have for you. We'll talk a little bit more about holds at a later date, but I hope this made sense and that my drawings made sense and helped you learn a little bit. See you later.